Okay, so these are all not in general form, and I want you to change them to general form. So basically, you got to multiply out different situations. There's a few too many here. I think I can be fine with us not doing this last one because it's excessive. So why don't you try all the other ones. Just take a minute, multiply them all out, and I will check in a minute to see if you did them right. Pause for a second while you do this. Remember, on this kind in particular, you got to do the squaring part first, and don't say x squared plus 4 there. All right, I'm going to pause for a sec while you work. All right, so here's some answers. Let's see how you did. This top one would be first outside, inside, last. I hope that like freaked you out a little bit when you saw this, but you still do it. First outside, inside, last. All right, that's a 9x. And then the outside would be x squared. And then the inside will be minus 54. And then the last will be minus 6x. And then you can say that and that go together to make a 3x. So you should have maybe simplified it down to x squared plus 3x minus 54. Raise your hand if you had the same thing as I did. Okay, awesome. This one, x minus 4 squared, it just means x minus 4 times x minus 4. And what we're really trying to catch is people who think the answer is just x squared minus 16, because it's not. It's add an x squared in it, and it's got a plus 16 in it, and it's also got this outside and inside, which is minus 8x. Raise your hand if you had that one right. Again, 4/5 of the room. Okay, this next one, you have to square the x plus 2, which means x plus 2 times x plus 2. And that's first outside, inside, last. X squared plus 4x plus 4. And you multiply them all by 4. So it's 4x squared plus, it was 4x, now I'm going to times it by 4. 16x plus, the last number was a 4 times a 4, 16. And then the negative 8 goes in with the positive 16 and makes positive 8. So there's your answer on that one. 4x squared plus 16x plus 8. And green is not showing up so nice against the blue there, so I'm going to change colors. This next one is probably the hardest one I had you do, and that one is x squared minus 10x plus 25, times them all by negative 3. Negative 3x squared plus 30x minus 75, and then the 6 goes with that, and that brings it down to minus 69. Is that correct? Okay. Anybody get the same answer as I did on that one? Okay, good. And then the last one, it's x plus 1. I would always write it out if I were you, so you don't by accident say x squared plus 1 squared. It's x squared plus 2x for the outside and the inside plus 1. Okay, so general form is really important. It's going to be on the test several times. Now, if you have this, graph the following equation. If it gives you that x minus 6 and the x plus 2, it just gave you the roots. By the way, the teacher should have said y equals in here to make it an actual equation. But would you just graph those two spots, the 6 and the negative 2, and then try to figure out all of this stuff? You should be able to tell me general form. You should be able to tell me the y-intercept, because that's where x equals 0. You should be able to tell me the x-intercepts, because those are the roots, the zeros. And the axis of symmetry, that's the line that runs right down the middle. All of that's doable for you. Okay, and if the graph is not fun to graph on, you can always pull in a new one. You can insert, remember how I had you save one in your pictures? You can insert graph if you need a different graph. Or is the big purple box over yours or not? Oh, good, good. Teacher did it right then. I'll pause for a second while you try this one. This is scary because it's got so many parts, and you have to get them all right to get the point. So be careful. R3 like this is tough because it's so easy to make one little mistake. All right, I'll pause while you try that. Okay, so general form. When you multiplied that puppy out, it should have been x squared minus 4x minus 12. The y-intercept of it, 0 comma negative 12. How do you get the y-intercept? It's where x equals 0. So if you start with a y equals, like I said, this equation needed at the beginning, then the y-intercept is where x is 0. You make a 0 here and a 0 here. That gives you negative 12. The x-intercepts, these spots right here, are at -2 and 6. And you can get those by simply looking at your little equation and seeing what makes this part 0, -2, what makes that part 0, +6. The axis of symmetry runs right down the middle of those two. And if I average 6 and -2, that means add them together, comes up to 4, and divide by 2 gives you 2. So this line right there tells me my axis of symmetry, which is x equals 2. And the very last one, the hardest of them all. Who thinks they know the vertex? Raise your hand if you're confident that your vertex is right. Okay, only 3 people. So that means you probably aren't going to get an A on this test tomorrow, because you need to be confident you know how to find the vertex. All you do is take the 2 and stick it in the equation. It wasn't that hard. All right, so if I take that 2 and I stick it into the equation, which is right here, I get 2 minus 6 is -4, and I always told you those are opposites, right? -4 times +4. 2, -16. How many actually had it right? You just were underconfident then. Okay, good. All right, so this one is similar, except I'm giving you the graph and no equations. Okay, I can tell you it goes through this, and I'll tell you if it goes through these points, you have to figure out if it's been stretched or not. You can look by looking at the points. You'll be able to tell if this thing's been stretched or not. That's an important part. So try to answer all of those questions about this graph. I'll give you a hint. You probably want to find your equation for this pretty quick, because once you have the equation, you can start finding things like the factored form, vertex form, general form. All those come from equations. Helgeson, tell me what the x-intercepts were, and don't just say 2 numbers. X equals -1, x equals -7. Very nice. Okay. Axis of symmetry. Meister. -4, very good. The vertex, Rainey. Good. The vertex form. Let's go with Mr. T in the front row. Yep. Very good. X plus 4 quantity squared minus 9. Then we'll go to factored form. Hudson. Okay. X plus 1 and x plus 7. Look at that. You're right. That's factored form. Okay. If there had been a stretch involved, you'd have put it in front of that, but there was no stretch on this one. General form, you generally just multiply it out. Maddie, what'd you get for that one? All right, good. And the y-intercept, Mr. H. 0, 7. How do you get the y-intercept again? It's where x equals 0. Good. So you just stick a 0 into any of these equations, and it would figure it out. But the easiest one to stick it into is this one. All right, so let's talk about what these forms are good for. There's 3 forms. The vertex form obviously tells you the vertex, but we won't be that blunt on the test. Okay, so if it tells you the vertex, what does it also tell you on vertex form? Yes, sir. True, the stretch factor stands out, but in general, it tells you where the things have been moved. Okay, some issue must be happening here. Yes. Okay, by looking at the graph, would you agree that when you go over one, you always should go up one? Right? Well, there's a couple other ones you can tell. It's just usually we check that one. This one didn't have that, so we didn't know. But if you go over 2, you always go up 4. And if you go over 3, up 9. And that's how you could tell that there was no stretch factor. Okay? All right. Next, so vertex form tells you all the changes to the graph. Okay? It like tells you to move 4 to the left and down 9, right? This doesn't tell you that. This doesn't tell you that. Okay? Let's see. Factored form. What is factored form? Really the only good thing factored form does is it tells you -7 and -1. And what are those? The zeros, the roots, the x-intercepts. Okay, those are all pretty handy to know. And general form, one thing stands out about general form is that it's got A, B, and C in it. But another thing is this thing there sitting right at the end of there. General form tells you the what? The y-intercept. All right, good. All right, let's move on. This one is upside down, apparently. All right, so, and this one, by the way, does have a stretch factor. No, wait. No, it doesn't. Because over 2, down 4 makes sense. I thought it was only over 1, down 4, but yeah, you're right. No stretch factor on this one. All right, I'm going to ask different, you know what? This is so much like the other one. The only thing that's really important is that you remember on vertex form to throw in a negative. I'm just going to say it to save us a lot of time. Get how there's a negative in front of it? Why is there a negative in front of it? It's reflected. Yeah, it's upside down. So whenever it's upside down like this, then that means you got a negative in the front like this. All right, let's move on. Oh, that's it. Awesome. I wanted to give you a bunch of time to work, and we are now to that time. So just for people following along at home, these are the answers for this one. There, and there, and there. And these are very typical kinds of questions that you'll have to know tomorrow. Just be really, really careful that you don't like come in saying, well, I don't know these two things, but other than that, I'm fine. Because all you need to know everything. Because all you can afford to do is make a few dumb mistakes. Because if you make a few dumb mistakes and you don't know a couple things, I don't know how to find the vertex or whatever, then you're set up for like a B or a C. And I know you guys want A's. I want A's for you. So if there's any of these topics you don't get, you can't afford to go into the test not getting something. Because all you can afford is that you're going to make some dumb mistakes because you're human. And you can afford that and still get an A. All right, so please feel free to ask me if you have more questions, and the rest of the time is work time on your review homework. Okay?